is the 5th of September. Somebody will make a nomination for candidate or candidates, and we'll go into discussion and vote. And then swearing in will be the 16th of September.
Can I ask a question? I've had people ask me, a few specifically today called me up and said, Ben, we're coming to watch tonight, but should we be prepared for public testimony? I said, I don't think that's being necessarily done tonight, but I don't know if there will be on the day we vote, if people can give their 2 cents if the public wants to. I didn't know.
Public comment is at the top of every agenda, so they can
Do the 3 minute.
Tonight, or they can publicly comment.
Okay.
On the 5th.
Okay.
Before discussion begins.
Okay. I will pass that on.
Another
I did.
Make tonight, Mayor, is that if we're really going to stay on schedule, then the normal kind of protocols for updates and things that are going on in the community. Streamline or just do away with it. It's up to you. But if we don't start at 7:30, you're going to have to go past 10. Presumably, some of the interviews might not take 30 minutes, but we're assuming they will. So if you want to forego your normal stuff, do that.
In terms of protocol, your blue folder has a worksheet for each candidate on the left side. And we have the questions that we negotiated right up to the last minute on the listing there. And it's an amalgam of different people's input. There's 4 of us, and I'm proposing that.
Mike's, yeah, thank you. I'm proposing that that the council asks 5, and I'll ask the last question if that's all right, but that leaves one person will only get 1 question and the others will get 2.
Do we just want to rotate who gets 2, who gets 1?
I don't have any strong feelings about asking 1 question versus 2,
I
so
don't-
I will automatically say that I am happy to ask 1 question.
Okay, now, do people want to pick a particular question? Do I need to call on a certain person for a certain question?
I would like to ask question number 1.
Number 1, okay, Kristen, who else?
I'd like to ask number 2.
Okay,
You get to choose 2 questions.
I do?
Yep.
Okay, that's right, you said that.
and if Charlotte doesn't jump first, I mean, she might have one
Do you
she
have any
wants.
preference, Charlotte, that would stand at 2?
So far, it really doesn't matter.
Do you want to do rock, paper, scissors a little bit? Or just-
I thought you might like 5, Charlotte, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Do you want to do 5?
5. Yeah, I'll do 5.
And what's left? I'll do whatever.
Well, so each of you get 1 more then,
I'll do 4.
okay? Charlotte gets 3 then?
What? I thought everybody only got 2.
You've
One
only,
gets 1, 2
You
get
get-
2, or 2 get 1,
And I
2 get
get
1,
3.
2 get 2.
no, but you get
3
2.
and 5. You get 3 and 5.
So it's Councilor Ackerval, Councilor West, Councilor Lehan, Councilor West, Councilor Lehan, and the mayor.
That's a good
All right?
staggering.
Okay, and just a reminder, despite what the court did for the West Lynn thing, I would remind you that, I would assume that these are all going to be public
Yeah,
documents.
these notes that you take on any of these sheets are probably discoverable, so use judicious, thought about what you put down.
Or just have really bad handwriting.
He didn't really mean that.
No,
Yeah.
I have really bad handwriting.
I use crayon.
All right, so is that process clear?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, we'll do that.
It is a good point, though, that this is official business, and if you're taking notes about the candidates, so that could very well be public. If you're drawing little hearts and flowers, then that's.
Is this?
Hearts and flowers.
Little daggers. something like that.
It's gonna be interesting.
Commentary there, yeah.
I'm trying to.
Unfortunately, I'm not that good a drawer. so
Are the
it's-
yellow sheets are note sheets?
Yellow sheets are just separated.
They're
Separating
Yeah,
the,
Or scribble on it?
applicants
Or we can just scribble all over the application?
Well, you should have for each candidate, there's a little space in between each question to jot notes down
We just have 1
on each.
question sheet.
So if you
Okay.
look at your
you
first
just
sheet on
got
the left,
one? There's
just
not
got one.
5 sheets?
have
Councilor
one.
West, it says, you only have 1?
I have 1.
Oh, well, that's a problem.
Yeah, we were supposed to
No
have
wonder why.
One.
It's supposed to be 1 for each candidate.
candidate.
Guess what? I got 5 and I'm not
Can I
taking
trade you?
notes. You can have mine.
Okay, hold on.
I'm sure that it'll probably come.
I've got 5.
I got one.
I only got one.
It's because
Did they
Brian
get
and
our
Barbara,
packets
yeah,
and we
yeah,
got their
yeah.
packets?
And they,
Yeah.
Oh,
they cheated.
Just keep it, just keep it.
Yeah, yeah.
You got my notes on who's asking which question, so
oh,
you're good to
cool, it has the
go.
name already on there, awesome.
I'll get one.
I already wrote.
Are they in assumed order of when their time slots are?
Crystal still only has one.
I think so.
We'll hook you
But
up.
I'm sure that I'll get it.
Some
Yes,
photocopies?
Between now and 7:30, you will have all
7:30. I'll
five.
get
Another
it.
packet downstairs.
Perfect.
Okay, awesome.
You have 5, Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
You're
you.
good.
All right, so that's the plan there. Counselor concerns, anything particular? Saw them starting to grind up Boone's Ferry this morning,
It's on.
so that's part of our big repave for the summer. All right, if there's nothing else anybody wants to jump in on, let's go directly to construction contract on the Coucil shaft well facility. I don't know where it got its name.
I don't either.
Well, you said it correctly, so that's good enough.
I have no idea.
No, I
We
always-
are a German
I
town
always look to you.
and not very French. But other than that, I don't know the Coucil chefs.
All right,
Mayor, councilors. So like you said, we are awarding the construction contract for Coucil Shaft well facility rehab and upgrades. We did the bid opening on July 31st. We got 2 bids back from pre-qualified contractors. The low bid was $293,935,000. The low bid was Stettler Supply and Construction. I'm actually excited that we got them because they're a good contractor that does this type of work all across Oregon. If you're aware, we worked on Coucil Shaft back in 2014, and it was the downhole project where we actually did rehab on the well casing itself. So it took about a 4-year break, had a lot of restaffing in our department, so now we're ready to charge forward and get these well facilities
so
fixed.
these wells are part of our potable water backup system, right? They
Correct.
originally were the entire system, but now they're backups to our water treatment plant.
That's correct, yep. So the rehab we're doing is to make these much better standby for if we need them for an emergency.
Okay. Questions? Good with the contract?
Any questions? Now's the time, because we'll be saying adios to Mr. Palmer.
Yep.
So he doesn't have to stick around for the regular meeting.
Construction this year, this season?
Yeah, we're going to be starting beginning of September.
Right away?
Yep.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Claire.
Thanks, Matt.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
Project 2020 census, which I've heard was
I believe
upcoming.
that's, Ms. Bush,
Hey.
you sure?
Hi, my name is Sarah Bashore. I'm with the U.S. Census, and I'm a resident of Clackamas County. Everything that we do, we hire locally. So I wanted to first start by handing out some books. Guess my timing was just about
Thank you.
perfect.
Just about right, yeah.
And here's some more information. Thank you. See if I can get this to.
Is this one for everybody?
So we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. So why do we do the census? The census is actually in the Constitution. It's required that we do the census every 10 years. The main reason why we used to do the census had to do with the 435 seats that make up the House of Representatives. Every 10 years, the seats change based upon population. This also affects electoral colleges at the federal level At the state level, it affects school boards or school districts and the local politics as well. The key reason why the census is important today, though, has to do with funding. Using 2016, which is the latest figures we have, the federal government gives back $883 billion back to each of the states. Of that amount, Oregon's share is $13.5 billion, which equates to roughly $3,200 a person.
So if we have more people, does it go up by 3,200 per person?
Theoretically, yes, it could. Yes, it depends. That $3,200 is based upon not only like rural versus urban, but also the economic conditions of the various grants that you might apply for, or revenue sharing that you might apply for. So our goal with the census is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. As a general rule, what we're going to be doing is you're going to look at where do you live most of the time. If you live most of the time in Wilsonville, but you have a beach house, for example, down in Lincoln City, then you're going to be doing the self-reporting based upon Wilsonville. If you have college kids, for example, that maybe go to Pacific University and they live in a dorm, those college kids will be enumerated at Pacific University because that's where they live most of the time. If you have kids that are overseas going to school, for example, they're not counted at all in the United States because they don't live here. But transversely, if you have someone who is a foreign exchange student living at your house, you would count them. So it's where do you live most of the time, first of all, but then secondly, where are you on April 1st? If you have, for example, you and your husband have divorced and you have 2 children, let's say you have equal custody of the children. It's really going to be where do they sleep on April 1st? So that's kind of the second principle. The first one is where do you live most of the time, but if you can't really determine that, then it's where are you on April 1st? Our challenge, we're going to need to count approximately 330 million people living in 140 million housing units in order to obtain a complete and accurate count. Why do we care about housing units? Because that's where we mail the information. In Oregon, we're expecting to count right around 4.2, some people say 4.3 million people that live in approximately 1.8 million housing units. Using 2017 American Community Survey information, we show that Wilsonville in 2017 had approximately 23,000 people living in roughly 9,600 housing units.
So Portland State, that does our updates every year, says we've got over 25,000 people, I think.
Now you do. This was based upon 2017.
Okay.
Yes.
So we don't want to stop when we get to 22,789.
No. Everything changes with the 2020 census. This is the first time that we're going to be using the internet as the primary source for self-reporting. If someone doesn't want to use the internet, we will have toll-free numbers available, and then we will also have the form, the short form still available for those who want it. If you don't do any of the 3 mentioned above, then we will have an enumerator come out who will do an in-person interview. The languages, whether you go over the internet or over the phone, we have 13 languages available. For example, if you go over the internet, the first thing it's going to ask you is which language do you want to self-report in? And those are the 13 languages that are listed there. If we send out a short form questionnaire, then the information will be either in Spanish or English, depending upon the demographics of the area. Keep in mind, we know most of the demographics of pretty much anywhere in the United States because we've been doing the census since 1790 and American Community Survey since 2000. If an enumerator were to go out and try to talk with someone and they weren't able to communicate, we do have language cards that have an additional 59 languages on those cards. It seems like a lot, but in California, in LA, there are over 300 languages spoken, so they're upset that they don't think there's enough languages here. But I think in Oregon, we're in pretty good shape. So what do we ask? We're going to ask for your name, your phone number, the number of people who live at your address, the age and birth dates of your children, and number 9 is whether someone lives somewhere else. And this is where we talked about the dorms, for example. And then we want the relationship to each person. Everything we do is private and confidential. Title 13 requires that we keep all personally identifiable information confidential. Let's go back to World War II and what happened then. The Department of Defense asked the Census Bureau for information on Japanese Americans. At the time, it was a lawful request, so we gave the information. The information led to the direct internment of Japanese Americans, even in Oregon. But there was nothing to prohibit us from giving that information out. It was a lawful request, and we had to follow it. 2 years later, Congress tightened Title 13 and made it illegal for us to give out personally identifiable information. But how do we know that something that happened back in World War II and shortly thereafter is still relevant today? Well, let's look at 9/11. After 9/11 happened, law enforcement agencies came to the Census Bureau and again asked for information, personally identifiable information on Arab Americans that lived in the New York area. We refused to give the information citing Title 13. It ended up going to court and we won. Title 13 was upheld. We were not allowed to give out any personally identifiable information. All we can give out is aggregate information. Aggregate information is what you find at a census tract level. If you look at a city block, that's similar to what we would call a census tract. When you get up to a census block, it's generally made up of around 32, 33 census tracts. So it's a much larger area, and we will give demographics on the much larger area. Everything that we gather is confidential. There's punishment if we were to give out any information, such as 5 years in prison or a fine of up to $250,000. One of the concerns that many people have is that we might give out information about people that are non-documented individuals. I was going to say illegal immigrants, but I try to stay away from that word. So non-documented individuals, we do not give out information. All we want to do is get a clear count. The Constitution requires that we count all citizens, and all residents. It isn't all citizens, it isn't a particular gender, it's everyone who lives in the United States. And that's why we count all residents. I'll give you an example of my cousin Stan, who lives in Curry County. Him and his wife live next to a river on state property. When an enumerator goes there and sees the trailer next to the river, they're going to knock on the door. They'll find out that there are two people that live there. Using their handheld device, they will use latitude and longitude, and we will enumerate those two individuals, because it doesn't really matter where you are or who you are. If you're in Oregon, we're going to count you. Let's talk about the hard-to-count population. Generally, close to 80% of the people that we mail the information out to are going to do exactly what we ask them to do. They're either going to enumerate by self-report by going over the internet, or they're going to use the phone, or they might fill out the short form. But there are some people who are hesitant to want to self-report. And here's a list of these individuals. So what I've done is I've broken them down based upon how many people live in the Wilsonville area. And again, I'm using ACS 2017 information. Those over the age of 62, approximately 17% of your population, almost 4,000 people are over the age of 62. These people are hard to count because of physical isolation, sometimes mental health issues, feelings that they just don't matter, or even access or ability to use the internet.
We don't move that fast, so we ought to be able to catch up to them.
Actually, the people that are over 62 are easy to count, because usually when you tell them it's their civic obligation, that it's in the Constitution, they will do as they're requested. There are other groups, though, that are a little more difficult to count, and that would be children under the age of 5. You have a very large demographic in this area, and the state of Oregon is closer to 4.5, maybe 4.8% of the population is under 5. You have 7.1, which means you're a good bedroom community, probably very good schools, and that's why you have a lot of children that live here. But children are hard to count, and there's a couple of reasons why. For example, split custody of the kids. One parent thinks the other one is doing the self-reporting, and neither one end up doing it, or they both do it, which results in an overcount. The biggest issue we're going to find in 2020, though, has to do with children living in age-restricted housing. This is where the grandparent is raising the grandchild, and the grandparent is apprehensive to share with us the fact that their grandchildren are living there. They may think that they might get in trouble for it. They might be in a housing area where you're supposed to be over 55 and children aren't supposed to be there. There's a number of reasons why grandparents are hesitant about telling us that their grandchildren live with them. Again, we make no value judgment. We just want to make sure that we count everyone. It's particularly important with children because the money that you've got, the flyer, if you see on there, I think it's $6.6 billion goes to the Oregon Health Plan, the school lunch program, the breakfast program. There are so many programs that affect small children, and if we don't get them counted, we're going to be receiving less than we need in order to make sure that they take advantage of the systems that are available. And the last reason why children tend not to get counted is a byproduct of parents not reporting. If you have a parent who has 3 children and the parent doesn't respond, then the byproduct is 4 people in reality have not been counted. Renters, this is a huge demographic for you guys. The city of Portland, for example, is somewhat close to this, but in Oregon, as a general rule, it's usually 60-40 with 60% ownership. So you have a huge amount of renters here. If you mix that in with elderly people and with children, that's a pretty stark demographic. And that's one thing that we're going to be concerned about is the areas where you have a large renter population. And I'll show you where I think that is on a map in just a minute. The main reasons why renters don't get counted, they tend to be more transient, frequent movers, less community involvement, and a lot of times are just more apathetic. The homeless count. Using point-in-time statistics, we show in 2017 there were approximately 500 people in Clackamas County. I don't have demographics for the city of Wilsonville. But most of you probably are aware that with point-in-time information that you have to complete a form and it gets sent to HUD in order to get reimbursed. If the form is not complete, you don't get the money. And so this is a notorious undercount. To say that there are only 500 is a way undercount as far as an estimate goes. But I just wanted to show you in 2010 that we showed that there were only 22 homeless living in Clackamas County.
That's not right.
No, that was in 2010.
Yeah.
But still wasn't right either.
It wasn't even right then.
Wasn't right then. Let's talk about migrant workers. You guys are really not one of the large ones that we have to be concerned about. There's approximately 2,000 individuals that are migrants, but there are almost 29,000 in Oregon. This does not include family members. If you include family members, it's actually closer to 60,000. But I don't really foresee that Clackamas County is going to be that big of an issue, but we do work with Clackamas County on the migrants and the homeless count. Foreign-born, this is about 9% of your population. You have 694 naturalized citizens and almost 1,300 not a U.S. citizen. That's going to be a tough nut to crack in today's times with the citizenship question and everything that has happened to date. I would ask if there is one thing that you take away from this, as you run across people that you believe are foreign-born, please talk to them about the census and the importance of it and the fact that we only do this once every 10 years. If we don't get it right, we don't get to redo it. Most of the foreign-born residents are not aware of the census and the requirements that we have for it every 10 years, but they're also concerned about the fear that we might turn them over to ICE, for example, which, as I stated earlier, we won't do. But there's also language issues with foreign-born. So if you do run across anyone who you think might be foreign-born, whether they're naturalized or not a U.S. citizen, please take a few minutes and talk with them about the importance of the census. Internet concerns. 2020 marks the first time that we're going to be using the internet and the phone for self-reporting. There's a lot of issues that come into play with this. Familiarity with the internet, how to use it, accessibility, system security, and trust with the information. We are working on a partnership with all the libraries in the state of Oregon. We expect to have all of them on board. I've already done a webinar that has gone out to all the libraries in Oregon talking about what libraries and census can do together. What we're asking for is that all libraries become census assistance centers. It's something that was done in 2010, and apparently it worked really well. But I have been in contact with most of the librarians around here, the Washington County ones. I'm just getting the list for Clackamas County, but I will be contacting all of the libraries in the greater Tri-County area, asking them to assist us. There seems to be a lot of involvement and people who want to help out that work for the libraries. Yes.
I wonder, I think that's great that people can go to the library and work on this, but other people that maybe won't go into the library and don't have access to a desktop or a laptop, is it mobile friendly?
Yes.
so it's easy, because some websites are much easier than others
I haven't used
the
it.
mobile, I
yeah.
think that would be really important.
Yeah, it is, you're supposed to be able to use your smartphone, for example, but I haven't been able to actually go on and try it yet. The system will come up online on March 12th, but census employees are going to be able to go on early to be able to try it out so that we can give some feedback as to
Yeah.
what we find. Yes.
So when they did this program for the, for internet reporting, I hope they tested it out on a variety of age groups and not just have millennials come up with the program. They need people
Your point is very well taken. That's why we're
who
asking
have
for the,
actually tried it.
Yeah,
Who
that-
are in those age groups.
that's the key reason why we're using the libraries, because we're going to be training library staff and people who work, who volunteer at the library, friends of the library board members, and asking them to assist so that when you go to the library, ideally what we'll see is that maybe 3 times a week, there'll be a sign that says from 3 to 5, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and Saturday at this time, you can go in and people will assist you with completing the census. And also, you're allowed to have someone help you. It's not like voting where you've got to go into the voting booth by yourself. You can, if you have problems where you can't use your hands, for example, someone else can actually input the information for you.
Any thought to partnering with senior centers, since
Yes.
that's a tough demographic?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is
Okay.
something that we will definitely be doing as we get closer to the time.
Good.
Yes. Let's talk about the system security, just in general, the way it works. Our system is the same system that is used by FBI and all other law enforcement type agencies. So it's a secure system. We have hired hackers to try and go in and break the system. We work with Google on a regular basis and asking for their assistance as well. But the key takeaway on this is if someone were to go into the system and self-enumerate, self-report, periodically we take that information and we move it offline. So if someone were to go into our system and hack it, the amount of information that you would be able to retrieve would be fairly minimal because we're actually moving the information offline on a regular basis. Also, it's important to note that when we do the census, we do not ask for social security numbers nor credit card information. Another thing that's been happening recently is you'll see things on your internet where someone from the Social Security Administration will say, oh, you need to update your file. We don't communicate with people that way. It's a one-way, you communicate with us to our website, census.gov. We do not send information to you saying, oh, it's time to self-report. So we'll send out flyers in the mail. We actually send out a total of 5 requests for you to self-report. Yes?
This is earlier in your slideshow, but when you're talking about different types of families, do you guys differentiate between same-sex, heterosexual, single mom? Is there differentiation between
For the
those
first
types of
time, yes.
families? Okay.
Yes, for the first time. For example, if you're married to a member of the same sex, you'll be able to self-report that way. This is the first time that that's happened, so it's kind of great.
And kind of along with that too, I remember, or on that same page, yeah, one of the items was gender. Is it binary?
binary.
Or it is binary?
Yeah, it is binary. We tried, keep in mind that when you have the questions, they have to be approved by Congress. We did ask for additional changes to be made, for example,
Yeah.
that we might be able to have it not be binary, either male or female. But Congress was too busy and they were unable to act upon our
Too
requests.
busy.
That's the only way I can say it.
That's funny.
Thank you.
We'll take
So
the,
if people do not
Listen,
respond
win when we
with
get-
their self-reporting, you have no way of really knowing, right?
Yes, we do, actually.
You do have?
Yes. Yeah, and one of the ways that we know about it is we have all the addresses.
Yeah.
So we're going to make sure that all the addresses respond back to us. So let's just walk through that process real quick. Starting March 12th, we're going to send out an invitation to self-report. And it's going to be like a little postcard. It's going to ask you to go on the internet or to call this number. It's going to give you up in the corner a little user ID number that you will either give to the operator or put on the computer. About a week and a half later, if you haven't done anything, we're going to send out another postcard, another invitation to report, and then another invitation to report. So you're going to get 3 invitations to report. The 4th time, we're actually going to send you a letter along with the short form. Because we feel at that point in time, if you haven't responded to us in the first 3, we're going to go ahead and give you the opportunity to just get the short form and complete that. About a week and a half later, if you haven't done anything yet, we're going to send you a final notice that basically says you haven't responded to us. Unless you want to have someone come knocking at your door, you need to self-report very quickly. Then the enumerators, when they come out, will expect that enumerator will make 3 tries at a house. So let's say it's try number 3, and it looks like somebody lives there, but no one's answered the door and we haven't gotten any response. What we'll do is we'll go to the house next door and we'll ask, does someone live there? Can you tell us a little bit about the family makeup? Why are they gone? If they say, for example, they left for Europe a month ago and they're going to be gone another month, then we will tag the address and we will go through administrative records using the Social Security Administration or the IRS to find out information about that address. If they say that it's a vacation home and the people normally live somewhere else, we'll indicate such in the computer and it'll load up to our database. Any questions?
How many, by estimate, do we feel like that we miss in the count? It's virtually impossible to get a truly super accurate count, I'm guessing, especially with, we just said there's only 22 homeless people in Clackamas County, and that's virtually like verifiably untrue. So how close do we estimate that we get with when we do this? Because, I mean, that's very robust, the
Yes.
effort that you just talked about.
Yes. Using Portland State University, I've asked Jason and Charles that exact question. What happened in 2010? How close were we? And they said that they thought that in 2010 that we had a complete and accurate count, that we counted everyone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What we
had
will,
22 people that
yeah. But that was in 2010. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, in 2010. Now, another thing to keep in mind, though, when we do the addresses, if you do not self-report, and we're getting closer to the time where we're doing non-response follow-up, I'm actually going to be notifying you guys or someone at the city that we are not getting the reporting that we need, and we will consider at that point in time maybe sending out a flyer with the schools, with the school kids in that particular area. But this is the first time that we're going to be able to actually track who's reporting and who's not reporting. In the past, when we've done this, which we've done it, I think, 24 times now, we would send out the short form or the long form before 2000, and it would come back to us, and it would sit there for someone to data input all the information in. Now, with us using the internet or the phone, we're going to have more like a real-time response. So as we start getting closer to April and May, we're going to be able to look and see who has not reported and be able to take action in that area. Okay, let's talk about where the hard-to-count is located. This top area up here is part of Clackamas County, but there are only 197 people who live in that area. A lot of that is that Mount Hood area, okay? Down here is the Warm Springs Indian Reservation, and there's almost 4,000 people living there. So just based upon census tracts, you can see that you can't always know the population count. Now let's look and see what we have for Wilsonville. Wilsonville is right in here, and I would bet that this is your renters area. Now, your planning department, they can go on to the census website, and if you drill down, it's actually going to tell you exactly what streets are involved with this. So it's kind of nice. It's a new feature that we have with the program that we call Roam. The more you go into it, the closer it gives you as far as information.
Charbonneau is so easy to count. Look at them.
Yeah. So Charbonneau just, why is Charbonneau
Tan?
invisible?
Because the population is small enough. You know, Wilsonville's population is bigger, so I wasn't able to pull it up. The more I can go in there and bring it up more, but it just wasn't. Charbonneau is a smaller
So
population.
the lighter the area,
And it's not a city.
right, the lighter the area,
Yeah,
the
it is
more
part-
easy it is to
part of-
count.
Oh, is it
It's
part-
of
oh,
It's just
okay.
on the other side of the river.
Oh, okay, then,
Probably 4,000, 5,000
Yeah, there's
people.
4,000 or 5,000 people.
this is just a census tract right here. If Charbonneau is, could it be over here?
You can see the river,
It's
it's
south of the
light.
river.
Oh, okay,
river.
then you'll see, okay, so it's south of the river?
That'd be where your mouse
It-
is, yeah.
Okay, it just means that the people there are self-reporting.
They're on it.
Yeah, they're on it. This information also is compiled from 2010 and also the American Community Surveys. It's a compilation of using whenever we've had to have other surveys done to give us an estimate of how difficult it'll be. It's called the response rate. So Charbonneau has a higher response rate. So again, let's look at the hard-to-count populations. Your children under 5 is a much higher demographic, almost double. Renters here are very high. Your foreign-born, you've only got 8 or 9% of your population, which is pretty good, pretty low. and then those with the internet issues. So yes, with the seniors, we will be talking to senior centers. If we have any kickback as far as seniors and wanting to get into the center to give a presentation, we'll contact you guys. The renters in the area, that's going to be a difficult one for us to do in this area. I am an Oregon Partnership Specialist. My job is to educate, encourage, and engage. I'm your liaison with the U.S. Census Bureau. My contract runs through September of 2020, and the census will be over at that point in time. If you ever have any questions, if you have a constituent who has questions, just go through your city manager or your city recorder. They have my email address, and I'll be happy to respond to any questions that you may have. There are 8 of us, by the way, in Oregon right now, with 4 more coming on board within the next 30 days. Complete count committees, we have one that was formed at the state level. They were all appointed by the governor. The Tri-County area, including Clackamas County, is on a complete count committee, and they've been doing some really fantastic work, working together with the other 2 Tri-County areas. And then Metro is also part of the Tri-County CCC. If you'd like to form a complete count committee to make sure that you get your renters and your under 5 counted, that's a conversation for another time, but I'm more than willing to assist you with that. I know that the city of Tigard has been talking about trying to do a complete count committee, and they want to see what the other jurisdictions in the area are doing. It's not uncommon for cities to form together out in, I think it's Polk County. The city of Independence and Monmouth have formed one. Out in Washington County, Forest Grove and Cornelius have formed one together. So they're just all over the place. Hillsborough has formed its own because they have a large migrant community out there and a large Hispanic community, so they've formed their own. But if you're interested in having talks, I know Tigard would be interested in maybe having some synergy there as far as forming a complete count. It wouldn't take that much time. It's easy to identify in your area where we view the hard-to-count population to be. Recruiting, we have 3 offices, one in Salem, one in Portland will be opening up. We thought it would open up on September 1st. We're not really sure yet. And then the 3rd one will be in Springfield. We will have close to 2,000 people working in Oregon for the U.S. Census by January of next year. It's a lot of people. We need more people to assist us. We are behind on our count. Right now, we are doing the AdCan program. Have any of you guys heard of that? Address canvassing? The address canvassing program, which started yesterday, or actually started today, all the addresses that we have, we look at in Google, we look at using satellite imaging and other types of things to check and verify that it's a valid address, that it's not a business, or that if someone says that there's 2 addresses on one piece of property, whether or not there are, you know how people sometimes will convert their garage into a second house. So we've done everything we can, and we've come up with about 65% we've been able to verify. That leaves about 35% that we have to independently verify, and that's what we're doing right now. You'll see people walking around your community, for example, who will have a census bag and ID. They're involved with the census, and they're just verifying the addresses in this area. And this area is being reviewed at this point in time. If you go on the census website, you can find exactly which houses we are going to have to send census people to. But in general, it's about 35% of all the houses in the United States. Any questions?
So can you go to the paid signature gatherers on initiatives and tell them they can make more money with the census than they are gathering?
They probably would. In order to be a recruiter, you do have to be over the 18 years old, and you have to be a U.S. citizen, and then you have to have a background check. It's a federal requirement that went into play about 5 years ago, and that's actually the holdup on getting enumerators, is they have to have a federal background check. It takes about 60 days to get that done.
Is that because they're dealing with personal information, it's people's private personal information? That's why we're doing background checks?
No, it's just a federal law that anyone who works for the federal government.
If you're a federal employee, then you have this, okay.
Yeah, and also we just want to make sure that if we're sending someone to knock on your door, that it is someone that hasn't been convicted of a sex crime or, breaking and entering or that type of thing. So we do a thorough background check.
Now, I have someone in my household who is in the process of being a enumerator. So he had to go downtown, the convention center to get fingerprinted. But he said elected people can't be
What?
enumerators.
Elected people? I've never heard that. I've never heard
When he
that.
was filling out the stuff, it said if you were an elected official
I think
in that
that's-
area, then you couldn't be an enumerator.
You know, he may be correct, because we don't want someone canvassing for themselves while they're doing census work. So I could see the line there, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some things that are waivable.
Don't try to recruit us here.
My husband, for example, applied for a job as an enumerator, and he was immediately rejected because his wife is a census employee.
Yeah.
And I made the comment that I would have liked to have known that up front when I went through the training. And then they said it was waivable, and it turned out it was waivable. He was, even though there wasn't an address or anything like that, it did make its way down, and he was called and hired as an enumerator.
Cool.
So
Any other
we
questions?
have quite a few senior living facilities in town.
Oh, yeah.
So that seems to me to be something we need to really be careful with. Also, thinking about the children under 5, we have quite a few preschools in town, and I don't know how you would send a notice home with kids or what's possible there, but it seems to me that that would get into the realm of some of the hard-to-count young folks if you felt it was worth the trouble to make that effort. Yeah.
If someone could make that effort on behalf of the census, that would be great. I don't have the time. I've got 4 counties that I'm responsible for. I don't have the time to go to preschools, but I do have the time to go to senior centers just because the demographic is so much higher. So I will be contacting your senior centers and asking to give a message to them, a presentation in probably February or March of next year. We will be contacting your libraries, and they will be assisting us. And at some point in time, the census will send out information to school-age children, but not to the preschools. We have a great program, it's called Statistics in Schools, and so the school kids will get information K through 12, but it does not do anything, like you said, for the preschool.
I think he's referring not to the senior center, but the senior living facility.
Senior living,
Yes.
private
Yeah.
senior living.
One of
facility,
which
yeah.
is a memory care facility.
That's my question.
specifically,
How do you
And one
handle
of
that?
which is a hospice place.
Those are handled under group enumeration. There's 3 types of enumeration that we do. The first one is just the self-enumeration. That's where we do the self-reporting. The second is called group enumeration. When you have a group of people who live together that are not necessarily related, and that's where you look at nursing homes as an example. College dorms follows into that, and so does military bases as a third. Jails fall into that, where we do a group enumeration, where we just actually count everyone who is there on April 1st. The 4th type of enumeration that we do, or the 3rd type of enumeration that we do, is for the homeless count, and we'll do that one night in March of next year. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I guess so you wouldn't interview those that are in memory care facilities because if they have altered mental status or some type of
No.
pathology that wouldn't allow that to happen. You don't necessarily, and HIPAA and all that gets in the way probably too. You are just taking an overall census of who lives in the building and call it good?
Correct.
Okay.
And we talk with management only. We do not interview the individuals. Just
Okay.
like in college dorms, we do not interview the college students. We just simply get from management.
We need a count of your residents.
Yes, and we meet all the HIPAA guidelines for that as being part of the census, and we actually have the necessary forms to be able to do that.
Okay.
So the questions that you had there that are asked in the census, is that like the short form?
Yes.
And then there's a long form? The long form goes to how many people, what percentage?
Okay, so before 2000, everyone got the long form. But in 2000, we changed everything, and we used the short form all the time. What now is the long form is what the American Community Survey does, and that goes out every 18 months. The census actually has 2 distinct divisions. We have the decennial side, which is obtaining the exact count of the population every 10 years, and then we have what's called ACS, American Community Survey, and that's where we find out about how many bathrooms you have, what type of roof you have, your income, so on and so forth. So those questions that you're thinking about that are on the long form, ACS now does that. And so about every 18 months, they will send out a form, and it's just an estimate, and we use that. So for example, you may have 10,000 people, and only 2,000 may receive the long form, and so we use that as an estimate to determine what the population is like and the
Statistical
demographics for that area.
Okay.
And what I have for you guys, because I needed it for a meeting earlier today, can give you a little bit better example of what ACS is all about. I never hand these out at the beginning of the meeting because then people don't pay attention.
Play with it the whole time.
But this is the kind of information
Thank you.
that,
I think there's some.
You could tell there's one or two.
Oh, wow.
this is what ACS does. And the city recorder may want one. Oh, you got one? Okay, good. And so ACS gathers all this information for the census.
Okay.
See, and this is why I don't give it out early, because then you wouldn't be paying attention.
It's cool.
It is cool, yeah.
So, the other question is about confidentiality, and this says it absolutely is confidential, et cetera. Oh, though there it does say this, for 72 years.
Yes.
So, as a genealogist, there were several things left out of the 1940 that were disappointing to genealogists. And if we're all going to this short form, not that I plan to be here in 72 years, but I am looking forward to the 50, which is coming out in 22. Will it be abbreviated over the 1940? Because the 1940 had a wealth of information, albeit they dropped where your parents were born, which makes it harder to identify people.
So first, what she's referring to is that we do release the information after 72 years. That's viewed as a lifetime. And so for people who want to know where their family came from after 72 years, we do release that information because we view it as no longer as needing to be protected.
It's not, the individuals are all
Yes,
gone.
yes. But to answer your other question, we started.
Is the data shrinking? Because that seems very shrunken, and this is no genealogy info here.
We're going to be using well, there's no genealogy information there, but the ACS collects a lot of other information, and that will be available after 72 years. So remember, we only changed all this in 2000. So all the information that's already gathered is there, and you should find a great deal of information. But if we were to fast forward to the future and someone were to look at 2000 and say, wait a minute, I only have the short form, you would see the American Community Survey information there as well. So we're not losing it, we're actually gaining it, we're getting it more often, which is the whole key reason why we started doing the ACS, because the information was stale. When you only ask a lot of information once every 10 years, people who want to build houses, new construction, the information is stale. And by going back and reviewing things every 18 months, we're getting better economic information and socio-economic information.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it should all still be
I
there.
can see that in the aggregate, but I mean, 80% probably of ancestry is built on the census.
Yes.
And that the 1890 is gone is, you know, is an enormous hole for all researchers. So it's, I mean, it's just, it's worrisome if, not that it's gonna be me doing it, but somebody's gonna be greatly disappointed.
When you're correct, because ACS only does estimates and population, you know, we do
Yeah, it's an aggregate.
yeah, but it's also, we don't send it out to everyone. In
Right.
10,000, we might only send it out to 2,000. So you're correct, we are going to be losing some of that information. I have the feeling, though, that there probably is another way that other agencies are using to collect information, or other people are using, like Facebook, that type of thing. But I see your point, that we, as the census,
Because the census is so reliable compared to other, you know, let's look up their
yeah,
high school yearbook or something. The census has
you're correct, yeah. And with
predictable
2,000.
data.
Yeah, with 2,000 and 2072, the information isn't going to be as detailed as it was before. You're correct. Any other questions?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Namsu, I-5 monument signs.
Good evening, Mayor Knapp, members of the council. I'm Chris Namsu, the city's community development director. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to share with you some retrofits to the I-5 monument signs. If you recall, we adopted the citywide signage and wayfinding plan in March of this year, and council directed the installation of the first phase, which included 6 of the large kiosk signs, as well as retrofit to the I-5 monument signs. So I'm here tonight seeking guidance from the council on the 2 design proposals that I've brought forward, and I'm going to show you those now. And a little, just by a way of background, excuse me, the existing monuments were constructed about 20 years ago as part of the I-5 interchange project, the first time, with the adoption of the new city logo and the associated fonts and color palettes. The goal is to refresh those monument signs, and you can see the existing monument sign design up here in the upper left-hand corner. And we wanted the refresh to complement the new logo and the color palette, as well as complementing the recently adopted signage plan. So I had 2 designs prepared for your consideration, and hopefully one of them gets close to meeting your expectations for a retrofit. The first proposal is to maintain the color of the concrete appearance that the sign is constructed of, and utilizing the navy blue color from the City of Wilsonville color palette that came with the logo, as well as the Wilsonville font in all capital letters with a italicized welcome to and the Wilsonville logo in the lower right-hand side. The second proposal is a little more bold, a little more modern perhaps, and that would be to paint the back of the concrete backdrop with a satin black finish and install what would be a stainless steel or silver letter on that black, providing a pretty strong contrast, providing a much more modern but still a nice refreshed look for those monuments. Now, I presented these 2 designs to the management team last week, and I received strong comments like we often can receive in that venue. One of the things the management team felt was that the directional signs really didn't add much to these signs. In fact, they felt strongly, a number of the individuals felt strongly that it actually detracted from the overall message of just providing a very classic welcome to sign. So I went ahead and had 2 mock-ups done without the directional signs. Some of the directional signs, the comments that were received included the fact that by the time you reach the front of the queue, departing the freeway, you're already in the wrong lane. Yeah. And now you know that you need to make a U-turn as you're headed the wrong way. And so it was suggested perhaps we could be partner with ODOT and get some directional signage further back up the off-ramps, maybe some MUTCD type of directional signage that gave people a chance. Now, whether those are actually implementable or not, I don't know today as I sit here, but if the council liked that idea, that would surely be something that we could take up and have a discussion with ODOT about. The second one here was mocked up without the directional signs. So my staff report didn't cover this since this was just a late direction in the middle of last week that I received from my internal team. So I had those mocked up for your consideration as well. The monuments initially did have directional signs on both sides. There were destinations to the east and to the west, and they were on both of the monument signs on either side of the freeway. Going back to look at the destinations that I highlighted, on the east side, we have Town Center, Memorial Park, and Wilsonville High School, all very prominent features and destinations on the east side. We have the Old Town Neighborhood Business District, as well as Graham Oaks Park, limited on font character there, unable to write out Graham Oaks Nature Park, and always struggled with Smart Central at Wilsonville Station and how you get that down to any kind of meaningful, small, easy to identify. So in consulting with Mr. Brashear at Smart, Transit Center worked just fine for overall purposes of signing to this location. So these are cost-effective retrofits. Each monument comes in with these directional signs at under $7,000 each, which is a vast contrast to what we showed in the actual plan, which was a complete redesign with all the new stone and the Corten steel, which those retrofits were upwards of $50,000 per sign. So I'm here to listen and hopefully
So
receive direction.
I was a little confused in that your second choice you're showing here is labeled at the top as color option 1, and your first choice is labeled as color option 2, so we need to be careful about what we're talking about
Yes.
when we say.
Let's use the black with silver and the concrete with blue. And sometimes you want to kill your consultants, so.
Ben,
Sometimes less is more, and it looks, in my opinion, really cluttered to have directional signs that I never look at, and I live here. And I think it is incredibly sharp with the dark satin black with the offset with the silver for the contrast. It's well seen, and it plays well in a contrast with the red brick. So that's what I like, and I'm pretty solid on that choice. I like it a lot. Yeah, it's a solid thumbs up. I'm unmovable on that decision.
All right, well, there's one strong opinion.
All right.
No,
Thank
there
you.
you go.
I like it a lot.
Discussion.
Thank you.
It's a
Councilor
full
Akkerval.
Okay, I have a question, and I'm sorry I didn't ask this in advance.
Shit,
Sorry,
Joanne.
Chris. I was wondering, can you remind us the kiosk or the directional sign? You have it right there, yay! Because I'm remembering it was a dark background with
Yes.
lighter font,
Yes.
correct? Okay, so then I was thinking that black and silver
Yeah.
mimic that, but I wanted to confirm what we had arrived at
Yes.
for those. It might be nice for it to be kind of cohesive. Okay, that's right, because,
Right. So
Thank
it's a
you.
white letter with the.
yes.
Dark light back, yeah.
Okay. And remind me, I'm recalling that from our March conversation about this, that this was perhaps a good direction for us to go right now and be a lot more cost effective.
Yeah.
But these modifications, in time, if we wanted to add the stone, these modifications could also work
Yes.
with that. So it's not like money that's lost. Excuse me. Is that correct?
agree, yes.
I'm remembering
We
that.
could reuse the lettering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. If we decided that,
Yep.
okay, let's bring everything into the Stone Age, then we could do that. Okay. Then I would say for the sake of kind of being cohesive with, the other signs that we're putting in, I also like the lighter lettering on the darker background, but curious to hear. And the directional things, I think, are a bit busy, and the point of being already in your lane, I get that as well. But I would sure be interested if we could do some signage further up to get people in the right lane before they get to that point.
Okay.
That might be nice.
Smartphones are really good at doing that.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. In one way, these
That's what I would
these
say.
welcoming signs, they are, I think, maybe to kind of to set a tone versus give direction, because everyone's looking at navigation.
It does one thing well. Hello, welcome to Wilsonville. That's its purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, my opinion would be that the directional pieces are unnecessary, and we'll never get them right anyway, so let's just not try. You know, somebody will be offended that we didn't put their thing on there. And everybody has directional stuff in their car. When they're headed here, if they've never been to Wilsonville before and they need to find the high school, chances are they at least know which side of the freeway it's
Right.
Yeah.
on when they pull off. And certainly anyone who has a directional thing, and that's probably the majority of people at this point in time. And so I like the darker one with the silvery thing, and I think that looks really, the font is really nice also. My only question would be about the logo. Is there a reason we can't have it in color?
No, we could definitely mock it up in
Because-
the full blues and greens.
Turn around your cup right there.
Yeah, that would pop.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two-color piece of what our color is so nice on that logo that, at least I'd like to see the logo in a color. Not the Wilsonville, I think that should be in the white, but I think the other would look less like a white blob and more
So the blue is pretty dark, so it might need some contrasting background, but we
Right.
could sure mock that up so that it
Yeah,
contrasted against the
It would be
background.
nice to just see, could we get a little bit of color in the logo?
Go ahead.
So I guess I'm the odd person out here. Not the first time. I find the dark background to be ponderous, heavy, not near as welcoming as the other alternative to me. If you're going to talk about coloring the logo and not have the directional things, why not enlarge the logo and put it on the brick to the right instead of trying to crowd it into the name?
Put one logo on the brick column
Yeah.
to balance it out. That's a possibility, right?
The origin of this whole project, however, was discussion that's happened for years about people that can't find where they need to go in Wilsonville. Now, those people that live on a handheld computer, that may be true that they can now find it. But the whole intent was, gee, someone comes down the off-ramp and is looking at houses in Villebois. Where do I go? There's no indication.
But there still isn't. It doesn't say Villebois.
Well, I mean, so maybe, I mean, I'm asking how this
There's
augments the intent of easing people's difficulty, not that live here and come down that ramp every day, but that don't live here and are coming and need to have a little reassurance that they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, even if it means they got to turn around and go the other way. So to me, I think we're sacrificing a significant component of the whole intent of this wayfinding signage program by not having some directional pieces, and a promise that we'll see what ODOT will do is not very substantial in my mind as to meeting that need. So I'm not comfortable with just writing off the directional component because it was such an inherent part of the impetus to start the whole project.
I think there's still in the plan corridor signage that we're going to be installing.
Drive-by or walk-by?
No, directional to get to Old Town. to get
Readable from the car as you drive by, or only if you're walking down the road and you're stopping and looking at the kiosk?
They're more pedestrian oriented.
That's what I remembered, is they're not really drive-by signage. So there again, you know, where we, to me, would be sacrificing something that was the major impetus to start this whole wayfinding project. And I'm not real happy about doing that. So if people don't like the arrows on the brick, then what else are you going to offer? Because I'm not happy just writing it off. I think we're missing the boat there.
I can surely get ODOT direction on off-ramp related signage, and we could have that mocked up in an MUTCD, maybe even consistent with the Core 10 materials that we've got, get an answer from ODOT, whether it's doable or not. I could return back with some of those variations on design, and we could try this one more time and kind of have maybe all the information that we need to provide
But
direction.
monument signs aren't meant for directional signage. They're meant to
Right.
say you are here.
Yeah.
They're not
Right.
to give directions.
They
So-
aren't
it's
in
so
Salem.
much.
In Salem, it doesn't say capital that way. It says
And if you
Salem.
don't know Salem, you can wander around for a long time.
Yes,
You
you can.
can't.
I think,
It's incumbent on you to know where you're going. It won't help you. Very few people are coming to Wilsonville and looking for Villebois. They're looking for somebody who lives in Villebois, and they have a specific address. And they're going to that address. They're not looking for the park at Merrifield
right.
or Fox Chase. And if you put neighborhoods on, whether it's Old Town or Meadows or whatever, you're going to leave 10 of them off. And as far as stuff on the ramps, I think that would be worse than on there.
Yeah.
It's too much
Talk
information.
about
So cluttered.
sign clutter. We have to be careful about sign clutter as it is. I mean, that was part of the discussion with the panels for Beauty and the Bridge. You know, there are so many signs. Every few feet, there's another sign about something or other. And And it becomes difficult for drivers because they can't, how many signs can they read? And it's just visual clutter on the whole, where you're trying
Yeah.
to make a beautiful entry that says, welcome to Wilsonville.
It competes.
You know,
It's like, yeah.
Lake Oswego, West Lynn, I don't care, you look at them, their monuments are just about our city. They're not this place or that place in our city.
Not going to debate any of those points, but I am going to be strong that the wayfinding signage was to help people find their way around town. And what is the alternative? And
The wayfinding, I think, is to tell people really when they're there. You're entering Villebois, you're entering Old Town, you're entering Park at Merrifield. We have monuments like that at most of these neighborhoods. And it gives that neighborhood a sense of identity. And that's part of the wayfindingness is to identify where you are in the town. But, you know, I mean, it's the same thing. When you come into Park at Merrifield, it doesn't say Lancelot that way and some other street that way. You know, you're supposed to figure that out. The identity part, which is the monument that says the Park at Merrifield, or the entries to, multiple entries to Villebois, tells you you've arrived at Villebois. You're entering this place which has its own identity, different than the other place. I don't think it's wayfinding. That's maybe a wrong way to say it. It's identity. It's giving these places an identity. That's what I think, anyway.
so if we're doing a painted background, why wouldn't we approximate the painted color on the kiosk signs behind the bright letters?
That was a suggestion.
It would be gross.
The Corten is a model, it's got this mottled rusting kind of transition. I mean, we could try to find a copper type of a color to put on the background that would definitely be more in keeping if that was a desire to see that. We could definitely do that. I'm concerned it wouldn't show necessarily the way it's going to actually look in the field with the rendering, but I could definitely have that rendering
I think if you
done.
did that, you would be messing around with
With
the
the
color
brick.
of the letters too.
Right.
Because black and silver go together.
It was a classic contrast, right?
And that I'm remembering the Corten. Remember our debate about the Corten and the type of stone, right?
Yeah.
We were trying to get the right contrast between
Yeah.
those
Or
two
avocado,
materials.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So between Corten and brick, then we
Yeah.
wouldn't have the contrast that I think we
Right.
really were trying to achieve between the Corten and the stone.
One thought I have is similar to black, but not quite black, and going almost with that espresso that pulls out the tones. We would still hyper contrast really well with the brick and with the rust, and you're still getting that idea, but you're still bringing also that high contrast of light and dark, and you can almost do that kind of earth tone, coffee dark kind of play on
That
it.
looks like espresso, right?
Yeah, and that doesn't even look black. Almost, I know that when you put things on computers, they render differently than like what it clicks on or what you print out, but that would be a really cool kind of potential, like something that's not blackish brown, historic kind of color tone.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, espresso is a good color, and I think that's what we're looking at.
yeah.
So my one last comment is, I'm the only guy I've ever seen in the last 30 years with a bucket and a scrub brush scrubbing a city sign because the black background was all grown over with moss. And that happens
Well, that's
in this climate pretty aggressively unless
incumbent on
you
us to make sure that we're maintaining.
maintain it a lot more
Yeah,
frequently than the Old Town sign has been maintained.
yes. That is a downside with the black. I mean, you are going to get some streaking with torrential rain and some, some possible sun, maybe some color change with sun over a period of time. But again, on a routine maintenance regime, we should be able to keep it looking fresh and keep it
And there might be
away
some
from
special treatments you can apply to the top of the paint to prevent. some
sealer, like a
mold.
sealer type of thing.
And I know that, like, I know Miller has like specific Northwest graded outdoor paint. I don't know about, I'm not picking a brand
Doesn't work.
because we don't do that. It doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
She's done it.
It's Oregon.
Yeah. It's Oregon. Nothing works. Everything is gonna have moss on it. Might get a few mushrooms growing out of it, but yeah.
My other comment would be, I love our logo, and I would love to see a little bit of our color in it, but I don't think it should dominate the thing. I think it should be, you know, I wouldn't make it a lot bigger than what it is right there. It's good enough to be a subtle thing.
Do you want us to play with the color as where it's situated right there, or do you want to see what it would
I mean,
look like with one logo on each side of the brick column?
I think one on each side would be overkill.
Okay.
Yeah, just
It-
less.
It's just, it just is, like it looks really nice on our vehicles.
Yeah.
In the size it is. It's not the size of the door.
Right.
It's just the size that it is. And it doesn't dominate anything, but it's
So Chris,
It's an
could you-
asterisk.
Could you mock something up? There's no hurry on this, right?
No.
We can bring it back to the next one.
Sure.
Kind of show you what that would look like, where it's positioned now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to look at a variety of things. I'm just saying, I don't think it would improve things to make a giant logo.
I have a question. How many flowers do we have around this thing? Like those, like, are they bushes, like in the pots? They
Yeah.
look kind of drab. Maybe it's, I don't know, it's,
We would
do we have a lot
definitely
of like
upgrade the whole
fun
thing, yeah.
gardening, sprucing, prettiness?
At one point, I had 4 seasons of rotating color and
Okay, wow.
bulbs, and I mean, I had entire color palettes, and the problem is implementation. It's you know, Public Works is very busy, and sometimes there's just a lot more priorities than the flower bowls. But the trees are in the ends of those things, so there's Hinoki cypress. Those are planters in the
Okay.
brick column, so those could have some color pops brought into them to add some seasonal variation.
That'd be nice.
Obviously, the things in the bowls, those are actually removable. We have some on the sidewalks along Wilsonville Road towards Old Town. Those set on there, they're not actually mounted, but those clearly are in need of
So heavy.
some sort of replacement program. And then I was even thinking the lighting is 20 years old as well, and they're kind of floodlights, and we could do a lot more
LED.
with more even, you know, or some lighting retrofit with LED or something. Lower electric use would probably be nice and make it look a lot better at night.
And light the flowers at night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be really nice.
Would a plexiglass background be less maintenance than a painted background?
Like a piece of black plastic.
Yeah, or mocha color, or whatever. I mean, you can get plexi in almost, and acrylics are pretty weatherproof.
Yeah, I know that these are coming in all kinds of different materials, like when we do monument or interpretive signs, it's like a embedded fiberglass type of a material. They have 20-year lifespans.
I'm just wondering
on them.
about something that has to
Yeah.
be painted every
Let
3
me
or 4
consult-
years to
let me
look
consult that.
decent.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
and-
Ask Sea Reach what they.
Yeah.
what
You know,
they
what'd be cool if something was trailing down the brick, something flower that trailed down the brick.
Oh, yeah. Or grew up it, perhaps?
Or or grew up it, even like a clematis or something would look really pretty, wisteria, something like that flanked the brick. It'd kind of bring like that classic
Something more
flowering around the,
historical, like
Yeah.
hops.
hops would be cool.
I like it. yeah.
Hops, yes.
Grapes.
There you go,
Hops have
grapes.
big flowers.
Yeah, they're pretty too. That'd be cool.
Well, let's get the sign figured out. and we can
Okay.
talk
So
about it.
now you got
Doing the
40,
garden even
42
overview
houses to deal with, right?
That's all right, that's all right. It's much like last week with the management group, so.
I'm curious, what did they like?
They preferred, generally speaking, the concrete background with the blue letter was actually, there was a majority that preferred that sign. So,
But they don't get to pick, you do.
no, they don't. Well, I will do more and I will return for you.
Okay.
With a bunch of different ideas, so thank you.
All right, we're 6:30, we're in good shape time-wise. You got a city council work plan item?
And that's just on there as a placeholder. I'll just give you a little background. We met with every manager and department head that's involved with our council goals and fleshed out, put some meat to the bone on the goals and kind of not redefine some of them, but certainly define them better and then put a specific timeline to them. So really, it's just in there. If you have any questions, we'll update it quarterly. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Actually, I did have a note on there. Item 6C, I believe, which was encourage civic involvement of youth. And one of the notes that was in the packet on that was to do outreach to the high school for Citizens Academy, and I believe they've had a representative in that group
In the past, I
past
think
as well, right?
one time. We
Yeah.
reach out every year, but we're
Yeah.
gonna do a little more targeted
what-
outreach to AP government class this year.
Okay,
I'm gonna
that's
have
great.
Zoe go out and
Or
talk
their
to the high
leadership
school.
class or something as well.
Yes, yeah.
I think we might have also talked about the possibility that maybe sometime in the future, if it would work to have a student representative on the Parks and Rec board? Does
Oh,
that
yeah.
sound familiar to anybody else?
Yeah, we have talked about that.
Yeah.
And it's something that we could do. The trick is, in those things, is getting somebody who can commit the 2 years, so you'd have to pick, somebody that was like a sophomore
He's a
in high
sophomore
school.
or a junior, yeah.
They could add that to their,
Yeah.
College resume.
I just didn't want that
Exactly,
idea
yeah.
to get lost, because I think it
It's a
is
good one.
important. And it's something that I hear from people in the community, what are ways that my kid could get involved in volunteering?
Yeah.
So that, and I know the library, I believe, has a youth board, youth advisory board.
I believe they
the
do.
library has that, but I want to keep it fresh
Yep.
for all different groups.
Good point.
Yeah.
C1,
C1? Bingo.
we've
C1.
got Representative Neron coming tonight to give us a little update. One of the things that she forwarded on to the city was a private group out of California that is doing training on pilot test things on a limited acreage on use of pesticides,
Non-toxic.
herbicides, and how to make that work and see how it comes. So that seemed to me like that would fit well in here. And I know we can still do it even though it's not in here, but, should that be something we pursue specifically?
We have done some outreach to the people that were in the bottom of the email, and I'm not sure, Gina, did that person ever get back to you?
Yes, not.
Okay, so we have done outreach to them, and if they get back to us,
Maybe we need to follow
we've
them up
committed to,
again.
well, I think we have a couple times and haven't heard back, but yeah, we can follow up again.
Okay.
On the, not exactly this, but on the kid front, have we followed up at all with facilitating any interaction with the high school and the Meadows parking issue? Or,
That's, I have an update for you tonight, because I think that's gonna come up tonight, but, yes. Our transportation demand management technician that works for SMART is going to be reaching out to them, I think soon, with the safe routes to school. It says they met with Wilsonville High School administration, so I'm not sure if there's any more updates. You wanna come on up? I think they're talking about creating a task force, student task force, to
yeah.
address that issue.
Yeah, it just seemed like it's an opportunity to pull the students themselves
Yeah.
into.
Yeah, so our employee who works for SMART reached out to the high school directly, met with the principal and assistant principal to talk about some of the concerns that the residents have expressed as it relates to parking over on Meadows Loop. Real positive communication. High school is going to be looking into forming a task force or a committee of students to kind of talk about this issue and ways that they might be able to encourage students to either carpool or other alternative
Ride the
methods of
electric bus.
transportation or, ride the bus. They're in the process of kind of figuring out exactly how that task force is going to be formed at the high school. So they will touch base with us probably once school starts, and we'll continue that dialogue with them.
Thank you.
So we got an email from one of the concerned citizens that they might postpone their visit from tonight to another night.
Although he did say that he wasn't sure if he got that message to everyone.
To everybody, yeah.
I spoke with him on the phone today. Yeah, and it looks like that he was going to try to do that, but
He did try,
yeah,
but he made no assurances that people would show up.
right.
All right. On the Boone Bridge project, which is what, D2, what is this news thing I read about this week about additional millions of dollars of money the state found, and they were allocating $300,000 to the Boone Bridge project. This mentions $300,000 from Oregon Transportation Commission. I'm not clear that that's the same 300 or a different 300.
I think it's the same, and I think it's just basically to kickstart the process. They want to use some of that unassigned federal money. I bet you Mark's calling in here, so he can.
There he is.
He listens when he's sitting at his computer.
Out of nowhere, flies in.
It's a multitasker.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. Mark Ottenett, Public Government Affairs Director. The Oregon Transportation Commission was allocating what are basically leftover funds from the federal government dispersed through the Federal Surface Transportation Act, MAP 21. Towards the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, the feds look at money that's gone out and what they may have left over. They then apportion those funds to each state. We received a bit of additional funding. The OTC this August in meeting allocated $300,000 to start the scoping of the cost to complete study for the I-5 Wilsonville facility plan for the Boone Bridge.
That won't speed it up any, it just kind of
Well,
ensures that it's.
Yeah, it's starting the process. We're really happy to see the OTC act so quickly. The legislature just passed the bill on June 30th, and for the ODOT staff to jump that quickly shows that they're taking this very seriously.
Or they drive over that bridge.
As do the legislators who fund their budget.
Yes, they do. So they're starting to cut the check.
Yeah, the process has begun in earnest.
Perfect.
All right, well, that's good.
Thanks for sprinting from your office.
My pleasure.
At Olympic speed.
I have to say that I thought the layout of goals and processes, timelines, whatnot, was very helpful in sort of getting my head around all these different pieces that we're working on and who's doing
Compliment
what.
Zoe and Mark, because they put a lot of time into this, and the department head spent a lot of quality time with me and with Zoe laying out the timeline, so,
Yeah, I was impressed with
thank you.
the way that laid out. Any other questions? We got any other business?
Not to my knowledge. Barbara, do you have anything to say?
Well, we could adjourn a few minutes early and reconvene at 7 downstairs, and we're going to try to move right through the business stuff so we can get to interviews.
So we will have, we have them all kind of lined out when they're going. So we will bring the first person in as soon as you're done with the, I guess, just the Pledge of Allegiance and public comment, right? You're going to forego everything else? Communication? We do have Rep.
We've got
Neron.
Courtney Neron's
Yeah,
report.
that's
We
true.
gotta take care of
That'll be
her.
10 minutes or 15 minutes, so
And I guess the question is, do we have other citizens that want to talk?
we will find out when we get down there.
And then we got a consent agenda to do.
That should be
Nothing to
quick.
say tonight.
I don't really have anything.
Barbara says about 30 seconds on that.
30 seconds. All right, do we want to use the timer on?
We are. Kim's gonna
People,
queue
or-
up, yeah, we're gonna queue it up, and
So-
more for you guys, so you can know how much time you have left.
But also for the candidates, so it's really hard when you're talking to know, well, have I been talking for 3 minutes or 6 minutes or 7? I mean, so do we want to give them a heads up when we got 6 questions for each one?
Yes.
That's
You do.
5 minutes each. Do
Yeah.
we want to give them a heads up at 5 minutes on each question, or?
Do a 5-minute timer
I
at
wonder
the start
if-
of each question.
I wonder if we just want to tell them at the beginning, we will have a series of 6 questions, there's 30 minutes for this interview, and then they can pace it,
Yeah,
those
some
6
questions
questions.
might take, a minute, others
Yeah.
may take 10.
I
So I
know.
think what you could
Yeah.
just, at the front end, Mayor, you could say, here's the process, we're gonna ask 6 questions, each counselor's gonna be asking a question or 2. You'll have 30 minutes to
Address all the
to
questions.
respond and to answer any follow-up questions from council.
Yeah, so the only thing it seems to me that I need to do then is if somebody's still engaged robustly in answering a question and we're hit minute 5 or 6, I need to be able to know that so that.
So you don't have to worry about that. Let me just monitor. If it looks like someone's going long on one question, I'm gonna just give you a signal and say you might want to move along.
Yeah, all right, that would help.
Okay. I'll do that.
Okay. All right, I'm going to let you guys do most of the talking because my voice is not that great tonight.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask a question of you.
Yeah.
On Saturday, I ended up calling 911 on obstruction in the ramp.
Oh.
Something that was in the southbound on-ramp at 283.
Yeah.
But I debated before I called because I didn't know who I should call. It was Sunday evening, and I'm headed, to Butteville, but I ended up pulling over and calling, and I said right away, this is not a real emergency,
But it could have been.
but traffic is breaking and going around this obstruction, and if you've got a sheriff, a deputy who could just run up on the ramp and pull this, I don't know what it is, but it was a large thing, and people were having to go, it was towards the freeway, so they're already getting up to speed when here's this thing.
Right.
And they transferred me to, whoever I had at Clackamas County transferred me over to state police. And then I said to the state police person, well, it's not that big, I don't mean that you have to send one of your state troopers to drive many, many miles, because we have officers here. Or I said, if it was a weekday, I'd probably call the city manager and ask him to send a public works person out there and get that, whatever it is, out of the travel lane. But anyway, I wasn't sure. And they said, well, they would take care of it. And then I never know what happens in the
Right.
end on these things.
So on that, where it's an ODOT facility, I can see why they did transfer you there, but I think a better approach might have been to call the non-emergency dispatch number.
Yeah, but I'm on the road.
Okay. So then I would say in the future, if you're on the road,
It's on my refrigerator.
you can call me. You can call me or you can call Gina. I would just say call me and we can call the non-emergency number if
Yeah.
you're not in a position to do it.
Yeah.
We also have on-call public works employees that we could call out if dispatch tells us, well, they're like an hour out, something like that.
Yeah.
Where it could be an emergency if somebody runs over it or brakes hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in the future, just call me if you're not in a position to call the non-emergency number.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to
But it
wrap
was your
this
weekend, so
what do we have? 6:43 PM.
That's what I said, if it was a
Do you want,
weekday, I would definitely call Brian.